Hey guys, welcome back. Giving you my reaction to Super Wildcard Sunday, the two games, Packers and Cowboys, and the Rams at the Lions. Ton of action. Blowout in the first game, nail-biter in the second. Tons of great storylines. Super happy for Detroit. Shocked by the Packers, but not surprised. And so, before we jump into all of it, you guys like and subscribe so we can grow this channel. And feel free to comment down below on what you think, and so we can get this going. And yeah, without further ado, let's move on to the Packers and the Cowboys. So, Packers coming into this, I think they were 10-point underdogs. And, you know, a crazy stat that I heard from Greg Olsen, who, side note, is my favorite announcer. He's done an incredible job of you know, continuing to grow as a reporter and a commentator, and it's been really enjoyable to listen to him call these games. And so the stat that he said, which was shocking, we always talk about playoff experience and how it helps slow the game down, and versus a young team, but opposed to a bunch of veterans that have been in the moment before, that experience usually helps them. And over the past 5 years, teams that have more playoff experience are actually below 500 in their record going against teams with less experience. And I think that has something to do with all the pressure and exposure that these players are getting, throughout high school into college, and in the big games in college, and then all the media attraction that they get. It's almost like it has numbed them a little bit to, the pressure of these playoff games. And now, obviously, it's a whole different atmosphere when you get to the playoffs, but I feel like that has something to do with it. And you're kind of seeing that the younger the team is, they don't know, okay, it's a bunch of pressure, but so what? I'm good at football, and I'm going to come out and I'm going to play as hard as I can. And you saw that today with the Packers. I mean, they weren't even supposed to be in the playoffs. 3 or 4 years ago, they wouldn't have been as the 7th seed, going up against the Super Bowl contender Cowboys. And the Cowboys fell flat on their face. Before the game, Matt LaFleur said this to his team, and this fired me up so much. He says, "We're not even supposed to be here, but fuck it. Let's throw some haymakers." You know how fired up that'd get me if I was in the locker room? I was sitting on my couch and I was amped up. So that goes to show you the kind of leadership that he has in that locker room. The incident with Jair Alexander a few weeks ago made you question, well, does the team respect him? And, after benching him, still winning that game, they're coming up in basically a playoff game against the Bears, delivering. And then today, he called a masterful game on offense. I think the best play call, which was really the nail in the coffin, was when they had just had two very good runs to the right with Aaron Jones, and they come back, fake it to the left, and they slip Luke Musgrave out to the right on a little wheel route from the tight end spot, and Jordan Love just lofted a beautiful ball 30 yards down the field, and it was a touchdown. And that seemed like kind of the nail in the coffin, because Dallas, they would get a little bit of momentum, and then it would just get halted because they couldn't stop the Packers on offense. So I love what I saw from the Packers. Matt LaFleur, I don't think gets enough credit for how good of a coaching job he's done this year. And I think you got to throw him into the Coach of the Year candidate along with DeMeco Ryans and Dan Campbell. Now, on to the Cowboys. I mean, the main storyline coming out of this game is Mike McCarthy there next year? And when you look around the league this year, you see the Patriots moving on from Bill Belichick, the Seahawks moving on from Pete Carroll. And it's not because they're not good coaches. They're great coaches, some of the best of all time. Sometimes things just run its course, though. And it feels like it has in Dallas. There's a ceiling for each team. And the Cowboys have the talent and personnel to be Super Bowl champions. The one thing that is a consistent fault of them is the big game coaching. And obviously that falls directly on Mike McCarthy. And he's a great coach. Super Bowl winner in Green Bay, winning record, has three straight 12-win seasons with the Cowboys. But the consistent theme of the past few years with the Cowboys is that they falter in big games. And you saw it again today. The 7th seed goes into Dallas, where they have won 16 straight games at home, and they're undefeated this year, and they would mollywop every team that came in there. And the Packers put it on them. I mean, from the set, you could just tell that the Packers were more physical. And, you know, if you're a Packers fan, it's like the Texans. I believe they're the NFC version of the Texans. Like, you've got a great young quarterback. You've got pillars all throughout your team. I mean, the whole offense seems like it's in their first, second, or third year. The receivers and tight ends are all second year or less. Jordan Love's first year of full starting, and you saw them progress throughout the season. Beginning, they kind of struggled, and then, you know, they started to heat up, and now they're just hitting their stride. When I saw Jordan Love on that first drive, I think it was third down, he had, kind of like a play action, not a rollout or a boot, but kind of like moved the pocket a little bit, had pressure to his right, kind of dodged it off his back foot, kind of did one of those jump throws over the middle to Romeo Doubs for a completion. I don't think we can understate how much that does for a team and their confidence. To see that this quarterback, who is in his first full season of starting, in his first playoff game, in a big one against, a huge favorite, steps back, stays calm, and delivers a strike over the middle to move the chains. That set the tone. That showed that, hey, I'm here to play, and you guys can trust me that I will do whatever it takes to win this game. And the team rallied behind that. Another thing is, with Jair Alexander, all the rumors of, is he going to be back next year, some locker room stuff, and, he's an elite corner. You can't understate how important he was. That pick, which I love that the refs did not call a penalty on that, because the defenders have every right to catch the ball just as the receivers do. And he just out-physicaled him to the ball. And from that point on, you could sense that the Dallas Cowboys were in trouble. And another thing with the Packers, Aaron Jones is a top 5 running back. And he hasn't been healthy all year, and he's really struggled over the past couple years to stay on the field. But when he is, that team is a whole different team. He is an electric runner. He's a 3-down back who catches probably better than 95% of the running backs in the league. He's consistently making tacklers miss, and he's a Cowboy killer. I mean, over 130 yards on average, over the past 3 meetings, or 123 to be exact, with 6 total touchdowns. And today he gets over 120 with 3 touchdowns. And so as long as he's healthy, and this young receiving corps with Christian Watson coming back and Luke Musgrave getting healthy, it's with the Texans. Like, why can't this team go further in the playoffs? And I know that they believe in that locker room. Evidence today how they played on the field, that they fully believe that they're being sold short. So I can't wait to see them go into San Fran, take them on, and see what happens. Why not? If that defense plays how they did today, and Jordan Love continues to tear it up on his hot streak, they have a real shot. I mean, this is a real NFL team going into the divisional round. You don't just sneak into the divisional round. These 8 teams coming up, they're the best 8 teams in football, and that's how they got there. So the last thing I want to touch on, in this game is on the Cowboys side of the ball. Something that I kind of noticed, and you saw it in the Miami game and then other games, and definitely this one, is it seems like Micah Parsons is a little beat up towards the end of the season. He starts off so hot every beginning of the season, and you feel like he's such a physical player, and such a menacing presence that I wonder if it takes a toll on him throughout the year and he just doesn't have as much juice in the tank. You saw him clutching his ribs throughout this game and other games. You see him. He always feels a little bit dinged up. And I'm not taking any weight. I mean, he's a top 5 defensive player in the league, without a question. He's an absolute game wrecker. It feels like sometimes he can disappear at times. And so I think that Dallas needs a little bit of speed in their linebacking corps because their secondary is very good and their defensive line could use, some development of their interior guys. Mozzie Smith has really been a non-factor this year, which is their first-round pick this past year. So they definitely have the pieces, and I would expect them to move forward, in a progressive nature. It just feels like this Mike McCarthy thing has run its course. And obviously Bill Belichick is the main name that they're all talking about on whether or not, Jerry and them, they have a good relationship. Now, a working relationship is way different than just a casual friendship. But one thing Bill Belichick has in his bag is that he is the best big game coach that there has ever been. There is not a chance that if Bill Belichick was coaching the Cowboys, that they would have laid an egg like they did today. And so I feel like Jerry Jones is going to take the next couple days to kind of gather his thoughts, be with the team. But he's going to assess on whether or not he feels like Mike McCarthy is the right coach. Because where do you go from this? You've already won 12 games 3 years in a row. Okay, so you win 13. You haven't gotten past the divisional round. And that might just be the ceiling for him as the coach on this team. So, interested to see how that development plays out. Excited to see the Packers take on the Niners. And so with that, let's just move on to the Lions and Rams. And a hell of a nail-biter in this one. I love how the Lions have taken on the identity of the city of Detroit and their coach, Dan Campbell. They were criticized so heavily of trading down in the draft and then taking Jahmyr Gibbs with the 12th pick. And I can tell you something for certain. They don't give a shit. They saw that running back who, for some reason, the stock has gone down on running backs, but they touch the ball more than anybody besides the quarterbacks. So having an elite running back matters. Something that the Cowboys have missed without the physical presence of Zeke. And you just saw plays being made all over by David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. They hit on Amon-Ra St. Brown a couple years ago. He's an elite receiver. Jameson Williams is starting to come on. Sam Laporta looks like a top 5 tight end already. And then their offensive line is as good as they come. The best part about this team is they love getting in fistfights. They're like that friend that goes out to drink and just wants to get in a fight. And, is it always good to have a friend like that? Debatable. But when you need them, it's great to have them in your corner. And the Lions have that in their bag. They love playing physical football. And Jared Goff, the pressure on him tonight was immense. You get kicked out of L.A. and Matthew Stafford goes on and wins the Super Bowl the next year, who was an elite quarterback for the Detroit Lions. You're kind of cast off to Detroit, sent, there for your career to die, so to speak. And he's helped this resurgence. And you saw him come out in the first half, light it up. Now, in the second half, both defenses kind of tightened up. Matthew Stafford stayed hot, but they just couldn't cash it in the red zone, which the Lions were 3 for 3 in the red zone with touchdowns, and the Rams were 3 for 3 with field goals. And, or they had 3 field goals. And that's the game right there. It's, can you turn red zone possessions into touchdowns? And we see it so often. And the Lions were able to, and the Rams were not. So, going on to the Rams side of the ball, I find it so shocking that Puka Nacua fell to the 5th round in the draft. I mean, what a steal. The Rams front office, with all the trades they made to go all in for their Super Bowl victory. Wow. It worked, obviously, and that famous line was, fuck them picks. Well, now they're hitting on them, and most of them are late-round picks. I mean, within 12 picks, they got Kobe Turner and Byron Young, who I think combined for 16 sacks this year, which is incredible to find late in the draft, along with Kyron Johnson, who got almost 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns, and obviously Puka Nacua, who set multiple rookie records this year. This team has a bright future. I think Matthew Stafford has a couple years of football left. I look for them to develop a young quarterback. I know they drafted Stetson Bennett, who looked incredible in the preseason, and we didn't really see him throughout the year. I wouldn't be surprised if they took another quarterback and let them sit behind Stafford and learn from one of the greatest quarterbacks of our time. So the Rams aren't going anywhere, and you really got to tip your hat to them, with how they played this season, because they do not have a loaded roster. And there was a point in time where, it was a real conversation. Do you ship out Aaron Donald, and get a first and a second rounder for him to a team that needs a physical defensive presence on the line to help go win a championship? They believed in their team that they could make a run, and they got hot. Once they got healthy and started gaining some confidence, they just kept rattling off wins. So, kudos to the Rams. Love what I see from them. But tonight's just all about the Lions. You saw fans crying. You see season ticket holders that have been there for decades finally get to see another win there in their stadium. And you just couldn't be happier for that city and for those fans and for those players. After the game, when Aiden Hutchinson said, we were hoping to see Dallas, it goes to show you the mentality of that team. They want to get revenge. They feel like they've been shorted, and they were kind of shorted in this game. A lot of people had the Rams winning this game. Even though the Lions had won the division, got 12 W's, and had home field advantage, it felt like they were the underdogs. And they came out and they put it to them. And the defense, credit to them, because that has been their weak spot all season long. They really tightened up, in critical times like the red zone. And then in the fourth quarter, Puka Nacua tore them up, but it just kept feeling like they just made big plays when they needed to. So incredibly happy for the Lions. They get another home playoff game, which is awesome. I feel like this was, going to be, we'll obviously have to see who they play next week, and then if they move on, who else after that. But I feel like this is really one of their tougher tests of the season, obviously because it's the playoffs. But the Rams, they're no slouch, and they were playing super hot. So to get that W, not only does it give some of the pressure a relief to get to the playoffs, win the playoff game, but also gives you a little bit of confidence to know that you can hang in these tight games against elite offenses and deliver. So props to their defense and their defensive coordinator. Would love to see them get some secondary help here in the draft, another edge rusher to pair with Aiden Hutchinson. Excited to see how they develop in these playoffs. I think that either the Eagles or Bucks are an easier matchup for them than the Rams. And so obviously the game's still got to be played. But if I'm a Lions fan, I feel real good about the chances of us making an NFC Championship game. Now, to touch on a few things before I send it out, LA decided to is headed for an interview with Jim Harbaugh. And I think out of every offseason move and coaching decisions, LA's is under the biggest microscope, and they need to get a legit coach. And Jim Harbaugh is exactly that. Everywhere he's gone, he's won. He's incredible at keeping a physical presence as an offensive-minded coach. He just left on a high, or he just won the national title with Michigan after resurrecting that program. And I feel like he wants another crack at it. And LA is the perfect spot for him to go. You got an elite quarterback under contract. You got great defensive pieces. And, you got some developmental stuff on the offense. Great left tackle. You got a young receiver, Quentin Johnson, who really struggled throughout the year. But he has talent. He wouldn't have gone in the first round if he didn't. So I think LA needs to secure him as their next coach. That is a must-have. And if they don't, then I view the offseason as a failure. Last thing before I shut this video off is on a little bit of draft news. And we see that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be entering the draft, which is huge for people in the top 5 because that adds a little bit of a wrinkle when it comes to teams trading up for a quarterback because, you look at a team like the Bears, which, I think they need to take Caleb Williams. Sounds like he doesn't want to go there. And there's some funky stuff going on there. He still hasn't declared. And, is this another Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers situation where Eli and Archie were like, we're not playing for the San Diego Chargers. They have a dysfunctional organization. And, that's how Caleb Williams feels like towards the Bears. And I don't blame him. This is his future we're talking about. And now, I don't want the NFL to turn into the NBA where guys could just request trades and just get it every single year. Obviously, the format of the worst teams pick at the front of the draft, that's what helps keep a level playing field. But I can understand where Caleb Williams is coming from because this is your legacy on the line, and you want to go to a team that you believe is going to do whatever it can to help you succeed. He's from the D.C. area. I would expect the Commanders to make a move. They have the pieces to trade up and grab him at number 1. If that happens, I would suspect that the Bears stay pat at 2 and snag Marvin Harrison Jr., which is why that comes into, which is why it's such an important talking point right now, because then that leaves Drake May and Jaden Daniels left there at 3 for the Patriots and then any teams beyond that. So, huge question marks coming up in the offseason with the draft and other coaching decisions. Still got to see what happens with Bill Belichick now that this Cowboys season is over and Mike McCarthy might be out the door. We'll have to see how that develops. And best believe we will be posting a video on whatever happens. And, yeah, excited to see the Eagles and Bucks and then the Steelers and Bills tomorrow. Can't wait to get on and talk about those games. Hopefully they're good. And, yeah, so enjoy tomorrow's games of football. Great Sunday Wildcard weekend, day of football today. Looking forward to it. And we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great night.